Yeah, because I wasn't familiar with your format. So,
Hello, everybody. I'm Pamela Marshall at the Wellness Network and at the Wellness Radio TV. I thank you so much for joining us for this edition of Authors in Conversation. My author today is Free Harris, who has written a book called I Would Scream If I Could Get the Out of My Mouth. Free, thank you for joining us.
oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate being here.
Free is going to be part of the Sunshine Book Festival, which takes place January 27th and 28th, sponsored by the Writers Alliance of Gainesville, Florida. The event will be at Trinity United Methodist Church. So let's just jump right in on the title. That's
Yeah,
what I want to do. Tell
right.
me.
It's funny how that the word dick seems to conjure up so many emotions and
Oh,
you
Free,
know
come on. You didn't think it would?
oh yeah, the funny thing about it is I'm always surprised at the thought process that people have when it comes to certain words, right? And
Uh
so
huh.
if I am talking about, for me, it's just to play on the word King Richard, which Shakespeare references as the devil.
Uh huh.
And the book actually has a collage of names. So, just to give you an idea, that word that you see, oh, I'm going the wrong way. You see, it's actually words, it's names of people, right?
Uh huh.
So I'm talking about wicked rulers. If you would look at it from a biblical standpoint, we would be talking about Ephesians 6 and 12. We're dealing with wicked rulers and people in high places that are seeking to guide us in ways that I don't think God intended. So Scream is also scream therapy. It was kind of popular in the 70s and the 80s where, so many people were trying to tell us how to think, how to behave. I don't think it's any different. I mean, I come from Michigan in the Motown area, and
Mm-hmm.
so you had people like Marvin Gaye and Stevie Wonder talking about, just because our hair is long, who are they to judge us? And Stevie Wonders, if you really want to hear our view, you haven't done nothing. So here we are in society, probably more divided than I've ever known in my history. And so, for a country that believes in a higher power, uh, 95% of the world believes in something other than themselves. How did we get so divisive? How did we get how did we get so hateful to our fellow man? So this is where I'm coming from. And so when you say talk about the title, let's talk about the assumptions we make when we see one another. See, somebody hear the word dick and they instantly go to genitalia, right? But
Okay.
if you say his name is Richard and people call him Dick, nobody's offended by that word.
Well, what's Richard doing in your mouth?
Well, it's really about how we think
No, no,
about
no, no. I'm good. I'm good. I just
yeah.
want
Yeah,
because
no, I
it's
appreciate the questions. I'm
yeah.
just really saying it's really about, are these thoughts your thoughts? And I don't know if you've had a chance to discover your voice versus that of your parents and grandparents and certain things. We grow up with certain ideas of who we are. I grew up with certain ideas of who I was or was expected to be as a woman, as a black woman in America. All of these things were dictated to me. And I suspect that's true for everyone, whether you're a male or female, or you have a different way of seeing yourself outside of these prescribed gender roles. Who told you this? This is the thing that society has told us throughout the years. And so we choose to begin to deconstruct what those things are. And that's what I address in the book. Each chapter asks you at the end to start asking yourself some very important questions about who are you? And how did you come to know who you are? If you're a Christian, did you choose Christianity on your own, or was it the religion of your parents? How do you know that the thoughts you think are your own? Or is this based upon your cultural and your tribalism? This is how you grew up and this is what you think.
So the title of the book, I Would Scream,
Mm-hmm.
that comes from you mentioned scream therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you lead people to that place of being able to scream? How do you get Richard out of your mouth?
Well, that's exactly what it is. First, the first chapter deals with how I came to even.
Richard nicknamed Dick. How do you get him out of your mouth?
Yeah. Well, it how do you uncolonize yourself? How do you unassimilate yourself? How do you truly understand who you are and what your values and your core beliefs are? Where's your line in the sand that you choose not to cross? Is that something that you learned on your own, or is it part of your history? You know, there are things that we are dealing with right now in terms of our epigenetic trauma that may be passed down from our DNA, from ancestral trauma that we our ancestors may have experienced. We don't know it directly, but we respond to it. Okay, so how do we go about doing that is that we began to go on a journey of appreciative inquiry. And when I mean appreciative inquiry, of course, it was really used for organizational leadership to begin to talk about what does an organization look like. And if we're going to talk about an organization, the first organization that we come to know is our family. How do we know what our roles are in our family? What is it that we have learned to navigate in our extended family, uncles and aunts, then our community, our neighbors, and then of course expanding further into our schools and our churches, our places of worship. So this is really what we're talking about, is how do you deconstruct this to come to a better understanding of who you are, what you're expected to be, and then began to do a path forward. Because what I can say is that once you began to understand the time of your arrival, the place of your arrival, what was going on at the time, has everything to do with how you've chosen to navigate this world. So I would ask any reader to, as I ask them in the book, as I take them through my life and then pose those same questions to them, is have you had any experiences or any times in which you were muted or directed in a way that you thought should have been, that you didn't choose? I hear of stories, and maybe you hear of them too. I hear of stories where a person goes their whole life thinking, okay, I'm going to be a lawyer because that's what their family always told them they're going to be. They become a lawyer, and then they find out that their true passion is baking cookies.
Yeah.
And that's where their happiness is. So why'd they choose being a lawyer? Probably because somebody in their family encouraged them to go down that path. They were smart enough, they were capable, but that wasn't what brought them joy, right? So they would scream if they could get this dick out of their mouth, because they spent all that money on a law degree, and their true passion is in culinary.
I facilitated a conversation between a group of African American women entrepreneurs, and we sometimes look at that as Black women in business. And so I said to them, can we start at a place that Black women have always been in business? That this really is not new to us, but perhaps the dick in our mouth has made us feel like we don't know how to do business, yet all of these other communities of African American business owners and women business owners, if you were cleaning houses for people, you were running a business.
Proverbs 31 woman was a business owner. Her husband was known inside of the gate because of her work.
Yeah.
Her maidens received the finest garments and things like that because she made sure that they had them. So, and then, as an entrepreneur, I'm a developer as well. And so, and a consultant, that's one of the things that when it come to price, women don't tend to price themselves accordingly.
Mm.
They somehow don't think that they're worthy of the gifts and the value that they bring to the conversation. Now, what I found interesting in studies that I've read, a male will apply for a job that he is completely not qualified for and expect to get it and have an expectation to get it. Women tend to apply for jobs that are just at our level, nothing higher than our level, and almost beg to get the job. We accept the first job offer. We rarely negotiate our salaries, things of that nature. And I myself, I always negotiate my price. But when it comes to actually sending out proposals in my business, I do my homework just like everyone else. And it is better for me to pass on a deal than for me to accept less than what I'm worth.
Free Harris is the author of a book entitled I Would Scream If I Could Get This Dick Out of My Mouth. Free, and you're smiling. Other people are going, whoo.
They go, what the heck is going on?
When you're the mother of a son, when your son saw that title, what did he say?
My son and I, we have a great relationship, and my son knows exactly my journey. He knew exactly what it meant. He knows his mother is a woman of faith. He knows that she's going to tell the truth about exactly what happened. And I'll just, give you an example. I have a chapter in it, Tom Green is dead, and I wish he burns in hell. Now, why would I even make a comment like that? Here I was, a 20-year-old, early 20s, just starting my career in the banking industry. And this man sexually harassed me. And I had suppressed these emotions after I got out of there and continued on with my career. I hadn't thought about it anymore, or at least I thought I hadn't. I had buried it somewhere inside me. But about 30 plus years later, someone said to me that he's dead. And without hesitation, I said, and I hope he burns in hell. That was my response. Mm-hmm. Now, where did that come from? Where did that come from? That someone that I hadn't given a thought about after I got done with that sexual harassment ordeal, that it would just come up as naturally as hello, free. And it happened to be part of epigenetic trauma is what it is.
Yeah.
So now I come to understand that you can bury trauma, but you can only bury it for so long. It's going to manifest in some other ways. There is no other way around it. So then I had to look at, why did I have these emotions about that experience? What had it taken from me? And I felt as if at that moment in time that I had given my power away. I did not. HR, I learned very early in my career that human resource is not the place that you take problems to.
Black women.
Right. It's not
the place that Black women take problems to.
Right. Because human resources job, well, I would say all women, because the Me Too movement showed something different. It wasn't just Black women who were being molested and raped and sexually harassed. There were a lot of powerful women across a broad spectrum that were being dehumanized and marginalized and raped. So it wasn't just a Black woman thing. It was indeed a woman thing. Mm-hmm. And so I had to come to understand that I had given or allowed Tom Green to have my power. How did he come to have the right to put his hands on my body without any fear of retaliation or losing his job? How did that happen? And then I had to go back further. Is it the fact that white men, colonizers, believed that they had a right to a woman's body, and most especially a Black woman's body? Is this the paradigm? Is this the dynamic that he was operating under? And if that's so, was I also operating under that same assumption that white men were more powerful than Black women? And therefore, he could do this without any question or being challenged about his behavior? So I had to look at it from a societal standpoint and began to deconstruct it, removed from my emotions, to say, how did society allow this predator to continue in the financial industry? I wasn't the only one. I went to two women, as I explained in the book. I went to two women, both same color as me, several decades older than me. And I asked them, I said, does Tom ever touch you? You know, now I know it's not a touch. I know exactly what it is, but I'm trying to make sense of something that was so demoralizing, I couldn't grasp it. And they looked at each other very knowingly and said, but he gives good raises. Yeah. He gives good raises. So they were recruiting. They knew what my fate was. They knew exactly what was going on. And they stayed silent.
Why did you stay silent, Free?
Well, because at this point, I didn't know where to go. I began to look for places to transfer. I started dressing differently. Every time he walked past me, I would turn around. You know, I did a lot of things because what I didn't know, and I came to understand even before I started my career, is human resources is not the place that you go. You know, I had no support system. So if I lost my job, I lost my housing, I lost everything. And that's that's one of the challenges. So I had to learn how to navigate a hostile work environment until such point in time as I could get out. But I began to understand that this was not just a Tom Green thing. This was a system. This system, this structure, this power structure, and this sexual dynamic that talks about women as Frankenstein, you know, we're just pieces. We're not whole people. We are our breasts, our hips, our vagina. We're that. You know, I listened to not too long ago an interview of a very well-known reporter. And after she graduated, and I'm pretty certain it was an Ivy League school, she got the job because he liked her legs. Not because she was a great reporter, not because she had a lot of skills to bring to the newsroom. He hired her as a secretary because she had great legs. What is that?
What is it? I can see two people that are watching, Beverly Kate Bradshaw and Gertrude Copeland. There's not a woman that's going to watch this that can't tell you a story.
Right. Exactly.
Not one woman that will watch this can say, I don't have a story like that. Even women working in the cotton fields, and as Fannie Lou Hamer said, you know, you say you don't want integration, but y'all been integrating at night a long time. Otherwise, we wouldn't have this many light-skinned Negroes in here. So it's been going on. And so why do you think women continue to remain silent? I mean, the Me Too movement, you know, it's not even the news anymore because we so easily stop talking about this, yet it continues to happen. Why do what's up with us?
Maybe that dick is in your mouth. We have been told to shut up and take it. We have been told this is how you get ahead. We've been told it not just by men, but by women. When I told my aunt and then sent her a copy of the book in advance, my aunt told me a story of herself in the post office. And she said, well, that's just the way it was back then. A woman didn't have any rights back then. When I learned that my grandmother had gotten married at about the age of 12 in Alabama, and this is a secret that she tried to keep from us as a family. And then I'm like, what? At 12, what is that all about? And she then explained to me when I got in my late 20s, she said, well, actually, it was in my late teens. She said a woman wasn't safe in the South if she didn't marry. Eventually, her father, her uncles, her brothers would come to rape her. So she had to get married at an early age. Now, we would hear glimpses of that in Fences. If you remember the play Fences and ultimately the movie.
Purple.
Yeah, The Color Purple. This is very common, but we stay silent because women have been, first of all, we didn't have rights in the United States, right?
Right.
We weren't allowed to have rights. Our wealth passed down from the father to the son, and if he didn't have any sons, to the daughter when she married to her son. But there was no rights there. And that comes from our biblical upbringing, right? We see that all the time.
Yeah.
Where it overlays with that. So I talk about that in the book because it's a real story. And then I ask you, when did you get your power back? Because for me,
do you? Maybe the people don't.
Right.
Now, let me just say this. When I said that every woman that's listening, Beverly Kate says she doesn't have a story. But what I'm saying is you may not have a personal, but you've heard stories.
Mhm.
We've all heard stories.
And I bet you someone in your family has a story. And if it is from your mother or your grandmother, that pain, that humiliation is carried in you. See,
Talk about that. Talk about how this trauma, even the trauma of rape on the plantation, Free Harris, in your book, I Would Scream If I Could Get This Dick Out of My Mouth, is a symbolic name of the suppression, the silence, the veil of silence that women are under, and in particularly women of color. Talk about that trauma.
Right. And you mentioned something that you said, what does my son think? That's the thing that I want my son to understand. And when he's dating a woman, he's dating her past. And he needs to love her and support her through all of it, even though she's not aware of it. And that's the kind of man that I'm raising. One that is clear. He's 31 now, so he's very much a man. But that's what I'm saying. So I want to talk about it. I talked about it in many ways, but I just want to read to you what epigenetics is for anyone who is wondering. And it's the material, the chemical soup, or also called non-DNA coding, that surrounds your genes. This material carries your ancestors' memories, including recordings of illness, tragedy, terror, trauma, and emotions. This programming is actually stored on dead viruses and other microbes. When a traumatic event happens, epigenetics is activated or turned on and tells your body how to behave. There's a variety of illnesses and behaviors and mental health concerns that are linked to epigenetic activities, including cognitive dysfunctions, autoimmune illnesses, cancers, and more. So when we start talking about our epigenetic trauma, you may not know it, but the example I will give is the constant claiming by white women that a Black man raped them. Now, if you look at our history, given the number of mulattoes during slavery and enslavement, I should say, there is no record or any tangible proof that white women were being raped en masse. There's no record of that. But there is a ton of records in the Library of Congress and in the National Archives that show where white men have been raping Black women since the beginning. Mm-hmm. So how is it that if you go to the Legacy Museum in Alabama, that you see all these lynchings that happen for supposed offenses against white women? And yet, with all of those lynchings, somebody in your family witnessed the lynching.
Yeah.
Just like you saw those mobs around the dead body swinging from the tree, and those white mobs that were standing there posing and taking pictures and
Mm-hmm.
creating postcards, someone in your family knows about these lynchings too. Where does that pain go to? Where does it go within the body? As it turns out, it's actually stored in your fascia, right? But that's your epigenetic trauma. It is the reason why we respond to a Breonna Taylor, to a George Floyd differently than they would respond. If you are the enslaver and you believe you have a right to someone's body and however you treat them, you're not going to be empathetic to the plight of that man dying, of Mr. Floyd dying on the knee, at the knee of Mr. Chauvin. You're not going to have the same emotion, but something triggers within us something different. Our epigenetic trauma is turned on the minute we hear about it. I couldn't even watch the tape. I've never watched the George Floyd tape. Why? Because my father is from Mississippi at a time in which they're lynching without any problems whatsoever. So we have to begin to deconstruct and not respond in the way that the masses, these evil people, want us to respond. Because our response can't be in the street. Our response has to look at this evil that is going across not just America, because if you look at it, Christian nationalism is spreading like wildfire in Europe as well. And so we're at a time in history that we need to know our history. We need to know how to fight this demonic force because it is moving at a pace that I don't think anyone in my lifetime ever expected to see.
Free Harris is the author of a book with a topic that gets you thinking and get you talking and get you wondering. I would scream if I could get this Richard out of my mouth.
This wickedness,
this wickedness, symbolic, this dick out of my mouth, symbolic of wickedness. So Freed, as you're talking about the inability to scream, what do you make of all of the efforts to not tell the stories that you're talking about? You're talking about us talking about, but there's such an effort to continue to keep the dick in your mouth.
Well, at the end of my book, I talk about policy recommendations. I talk about, points of action. Why? But the first thing we have to do is we have to tell our own story. This is my story. I got to tell my story. I got to show up. Like you see me here, but who I'm representing is my mother and father. My father was ran out of Mississippi under some trauma with the Ku Klux Klan when he was a young boy. And my mother was stabbed on her 14th birthday in the North under a race riot as well. The blade broke off in her head and it remained there until the day she died.
Wow.
I remember the scars on my mother. That trauma that my parents experienced is in me. My parents never talked about, and you may have parents or grandparents in your lineage that never talked about the horrors, never talked about what happened. The Mississippi's a place where you had to hang your head. You couldn't even look a white man in the eye. You couldn't touch him. If you put your hand, I think Richard Williams, Venus and Serena's Williams' father, talked about how he made a mistake and touched a white man and they put him to death because he made the mistake of touching. This is the time in which my parents grew up. And so the humiliation, like I grew up, I don't even trust you if you're not looking me in the eye. I had to learn a little bit more about that from a domestic violence standpoint, that people who don't look in the eye is not necessarily untrustworthy, but because of trauma. But nonetheless, the humiliation that comes from the dehumanizing aspects of it, even though your parents and your grandparents never spoke about it, it was there. It's in you.
Yeah.
The
Yes.
pain of it is still there. I, I'll
Let me
give
let
you.
me just before you go, because you know what, we probably could do part two of this, but Gertrude Copeland in Jackson, Tennessee said, I had an incident, and on this day, the person knows when I see him, he knows I'm thinking about that incident. And you know, Gertrude, and I wrote in the book, my book that I wrote, The Art of Forgiveness, is about a rape by a man who is a businessman in Jackson, Tennessee today, who threatened to kill me if I got pregnant and aborted his child. And the trauma to understand that the silence that we comfortably embrace, and the shame that we comfortably embrace, comes from never having anybody to tell it to.
See, that's the beauty of now being able to write our books and tell our story, because
Yeah.
it's connected to so many other stories. I think that one of the things that I write in the back of the book, it says, and it's a Zora Neale Hurston quote is, if you're silent about your pain, they'll kill you and say you enjoyed it.
Oh, Jesus.
So this is the reason why I wrote the book. I wanted people to understand that I come from some ancestors and a lineage that continue to fight some enormous circumstances. So I take the reader through the ACE test to help them understand the trauma that really is locked within them. I take them through the endocannabinoid system, this marvelous thing that God put within us that only recently has been discovered by science, that allows us to self-regulate back to wholeness and wellness that
Mm.
people don't even know about, you know. So, and I talk about, the experiments that were done. There's two experiments that are quite interesting, and Hollywood would be complicit in why we accept it. Hollywood is probably more dangerous than we even think. The first one would be the Manchurian Candidate, where they, cause the soldiers to believe a thing that was not true, and they continue to begin to mind control them. Well, as it turns out, this is the exact same time that the actual government was doing mind control experiments. There's an experiment called MK Ultra and one called Project Artichoke. This is when they were actually doing mind experiments in order to see if they could get people to kill, to assassinate without remorse. 18 months after the Manchurian Candidate, that had the theme is to kill the presidential candidate. And it was to kill him on the national stage, and that the person would then give a roaring speech, and the individual would have a blood-stained suit on, and everyone would be galvanized around this new president. Now, fast forward 18 months later, and you have Kennedy, who is killed in Dallas, and the oath of Lyndon B. Johnson with Jackie Onassis Kennedy in her blood-stained Chanel suit, allowing him to take the oath. So did it become acceptable because you saw it 18 months earlier in a movie, and therefore it didn't jar you when somebody put a bullet through the president of the free world's head? And this was not a foreign adversary that did it. This was some United States citizen that assassinated the president of the free world.
In broad daylight.
How did that happen? And how did we come to just accept it?
Wow. Your book.
So it's really a history book, but it also talks about it from a theological and a political standpoint, because we got tricky, Dick. Look at Dixon. You did mass incarceration of our brothers and sisters. Clinton, the most insulting thing that I've ever heard is when people kept referring to Bill Clinton as the first Black president. Are you kidding me? He's the one who's responsible for privatizing prisons.
And 3 strikes, you're out.
He's the one that did mandatory sentencing. He's the one that gave the cops grants where they took away all of the money from the community and gave it to militarize and police our communities. These are wicked men. And we sit around and we talk about them as if because they either were Democrat or Republican. I'm like the indigenous tribes on this. What if I were to tell you that the right wing and the left wing were on the same bird?
Ooh.
We got to stop with that.
Wait, say that again. If I told you that the right wing and the left wing
are on the same bird.
On the same bird.
Mm-hmm. Whew. This thing can't fly without them both playing that. Well, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. And the person, and who's losing? We're losing with this thing called otherness. Now, the truth of the matter is, and you talked about forgiveness, and this is part of it. We've got to get to the point where we forgive the person that has done this wickedness to our family members. As hard as it may be for us to understand that there is somebody who lynched a loved one, who raped a loved one, who did this. I'm talking about centuries ago. I'm not talking about immediately, because it takes some time to forgive stuff like that. As hard as it is, it's hard for them too. It's hard to be the ancestor or the heir of a rapist. It's hard. You can't kill somebody and not expect it not to take your soul too, to damage your lineage too.
Yeah, so we hear about the blessing of the seed of Abraham, but it goes both ways, right?
Correct. And then I even asked the question, who spoke about those 32,000 versions that they took and sold off in war? In the Bible, we talk about 32,000 versions. That's a lot of women that came up missing. I talk about womb colonization, because that's what they did. They just colonized wombs. The woman was not nearly as important as the fact that it was the son or the daughter of. It was not. And so I began to think about all of the things that I have been told, like a man is just a man. When he cheats, that's just how a man is. A man is just a man when he cheats. A woman, she's got 3 roles, even from a biblical standpoint. She is virtuous, villainous, or invisible. That's all we got.
Free. Is that your given name, Free?
It will be. Actually, I'm changing it legally, so I'll leave it at that. But it happens to be, after I wrote the book, it actually was the name that God told me to go by from this point on.
Free Harris.
Yeah.
That's a deep book you got. And you didn't just write, but when you talk about the exercises that are in your book to help the reader come back to wholeness and to heal from having the dick in their mouth.
To talk about it. Because we as women, we keep silent. And as Zora said, we keep silent and they're killing us. But it shows up. See, the thing about, it's even like a criminal. A criminal is going to leave his signature even when he intends to do the perfect murder or the perfect crime. It's going to show up. And how does it show up? It's going to show up as cancer. It's going to show up in choosing the wrong mate.
Yes,
it's going to show up as depression. It's going to show up with trying to find happiness in food. It's going to show up in your credit cards, if you have any. I talk about those things. In fact, I do a lot of work with people on financial healing, because if you ever been in debt, I can promise you that that's going to be a sickness all by itself.
Yeah.
Financial debt will kill you, the worry of it. But the reality of it is how did you get here? How did you get here?
Yeah.
So I talk about that.
And people can get your book by going to.
You can go to Amazon. I'm going to the festival, so if you're coming to the festival, I'll be happy to autograph one. I'll bring some books with me and autograph them. And then if you want to know more about how to heal and what's going on, I teach classes on it, because the truth of the matter is while this book is maybe 300 pages, there's a lot of work that we have to do to heal ourselves. And what I recommend for everyone to do is go back home to your tribe and begin to speak about it. I don't know about you, but these are very painful topics to talk about with my immediate family.
Yeah.
My immediate family, they were in denial for a very long time. We come from domestic violence and alcoholism. And if you hear some of us talk about it, none of it happened. You know, but let's be clear. If you didn't hear about it, then how is it that some of you are heroin addicts? Some of you are alcoholics yourselves. Some of you have multiple children outside of wedlock. If it didn't impact you, then you would have been making better choices. So,
and because we don't understand how this trauma is impacting who I am in this moment and the decisions that I'm making in this moment, we don't even know how to correct it.
No,
Free?
we don't. And I'll say something else, because I did doctoral work in theology, and our churches aren't talking about it either.
Well, you know why?
Mm-hmm. Well,
why free? Why are they not talking about it?
I'll tell you, because they got the exact same trauma and they're hiding it too.
Okie dokie.
And some of them still doing some stuff, and they don't want nobody to know.
Okie dokie.
Right?
Spanky.
So we're following some people that have no business in the pulpit, and I say it quite openly that they've prostituted the pulpit for profit. They've changed and perverted everything that God has given us and changed it into something else. Yeah. So I talk about a lot of it. We have a lot of healing to do. We have to heal this earth. We have to begin to look at our history books differently. We have to begin to tell what really happened instead of what we remember the story to be.
Or just acknowledging I am in pain. I'm making some decisions. And where do I turn to help me address that? With the internet today, there's all kind of people out there. However, make sure that whoever you select is sound and appropriate. I have Free's information here on the screen. I would
Can I give you a different number?
Oh, sure.
Because, so you can contact me, iwouldScream.com, or you can send me an email at free@iwouldScream.com. The phone calls won't work for me because that takes up too much of my time from a personal standpoint. So that'll be difficult.
Gotcha.
But I can certainly respond to emails and then set up a one-on-one session. But we are not living our true selves. We're showing up as our representatives. And I got tired of showing up as someone else. I got tired of smiling when I really wanted to cry. I just got tired of it. And at some point, I needed to lay it all down. And
are you able to scream now?
Oh my God, that's it. The end of the book. I screamed hallelujah.
Gotcha. Well,
absolutely.
That's what we want to be able to do.
Absolutely. That's why my name is Free.
Well, you know what, Free? You may have a whole colony of people named Free when we get to reading your book and get free of this.
So. Praise God. I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. Because
change our middle names, if not the first name.
How can we love somebody really when we have yet to learn how to love ourselves?
It hasn't been important.
We don't even know ourselves well enough to love ourselves.
Wow.
But I love me, every bit of me. But I had to learn who I was. And the thing about telling the truth and unmuting yourself is this: the enemy can't accuse you anymore. He can't
Mm.
shun you into silence anymore. He can't shame you. I grew up in an era when they used to say, "Shame on you." And my response now is, "No shame off me." He died.
Mm.
No shame off me. He died for me. I don't know what you're thinking. I can be guilty of all of what you're saying. And guess what? I'm still free. Where's the feast? Because he gonna prepare that table in the presence of my enemies, and I'm eating. I'm having
And
a feast.
and David said, though I walk through. So keep on walking, right?
Exactly. Harriet Tubman even said it. If you hear the dog screaming, keep going.
Keep going.
If you see the lights of the torches, keep going. If you want to taste freedom,
Keep
keep going.
going. Woo!
Keep going. And that's
Hallelujah.
what it is. I don't care. I have one that talks about abortion. There's a lot
Mhm.
of shame about that.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I don't care what you did. I don't care what you went through. You are worthy of the life that God promised you. And only because you keep allowing people to bring up the worst part of you, that you don't claim your royal inheritance. But this book will allow you to go through all of it. And then in the end, you too will scream, "Hallelujah, I'm free.
Hallelujah. I'm free.
I'm free."
Thank God I'm free.
Amen. Who
Whoo!
but it really is a book about faith and telling the truth and telling the enemy to his face, "You're a liar.
Mm.
I can be anything and do anything I want to do. You're a liar."
Well, thank you on this day after the holiday where we give thanks. We give thanks every day, gratitude every day
Every day.
because the Creator is good. And
Yes.
we are so thankful for you and your courage
Thank you.
to write, your
Thank you.
boldness to tell the story, and your un being unashamed or unconcerned about what anybody has to say about it.
Yeah, thank you. And I give honor to God, who is the head of my life. And I also say that the indigenous tribes that who honor us in this sacred space, I'm thankful for them that they continue to fight their fight. You know, we can't continue to talk about days of thankfulness and not know that um, it was painful for them in their
Yes, that's
lives,
true.
in their family. So I want to be
Still
able to
today.
honor it all. Yeah. Thank you so much. And I'm glad that you allowed me to have this time with you guys. I appreciate it.
We appreciate you, Free Harris, and everybody watching. Thank you so much for watching. I do hope that you will share this conversation. I hope you will encourage people to get Free Harris's book. I would scream if I could get all of this stuff that's been silencing me
Right.
out of my mouth so I too can shout, Hallelujah, I'm free. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you all so much for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. On Facebook, please share, and LinkedIn as well. I appreciate the opportunity to meet these authors and looking forward to being part of the Sunshine Book Festival as well with my book, The Art of Forgiveness and Expression of Peace. That will be January 27th and 28th at the Trinity United Methodist Church here in Gainesville. It is free and open to the public. Angela Rogers in Chicago says, wonderful conversation. The part you heard. Well, guess what, Angela? It's recorded. I hope you will go back and listen to it because it's very powerful. Again, thank you, everyone. I'm Pamela Marshall at the Wellness Radio TV and at the Wellness Radio TV podcast. Remember, there is healing at the well. Make it a fantastic moment. We'll see you next time.